So here's the deal. I found out my wife, Rose, cheated on me with her boss during what she claimed was a work trip to Europe. Yeah, turns out it was more of a romantic getaway. Needless to say, I divorced her, and now I'm raising our two kids, Victoria, who's 10, and Travis, who's 8, by myself. Never thought I'd be in this spot, but here I am, a 38-year-old guy spilling the beans online. Rose and I have been together since college. We met, fell in love, and tied the knot right after graduation. Life was good, or so I thought. We bought a house, had our kids, and settled into what seemed like a solid family life. Sure, we had our typical ups and downs, but nothing that screamed red flag to me. About a year ago, I started noticing that Rose was acting distant. She was glued to her phone and pulling late nights at the office more often than usual. I figured it was just the stress from her recent promotion in marketing. I tried to be the supportive husband, picking up more chores and taking care of the kids, thinking things would eventually get back to normal. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Fast forward to about a month ago, Rose mentioned she had to go on a 2-week business trip to Europe. She said it was a big deal, visiting international offices and setting up major deals. The night before she left, I noticed her packing cocktail dresses and fancy lingerie. When I asked about it, she got all defensive, saying she might have to attend formal events. I decided not to push it, not wanting to start a fight before she left. While she was away, juggling work and the kids was tough, but I managed. Rose would call every night, but our conversations were short and she always seemed like she was in a rush. On the 4th night, she called later than usual, and I could hear music and laughter in the background. She said she was at a work dinner, but something felt off. Her voice was slurred like she'd been drinking. My gut was telling me something was wrong, so I did a bit of snooping. I logged into our shared cloud account and found photos that made my stomach drop. There she was, in those fancy dresses, touring Paris with a tall, good-looking guy. They were at romantic spots, toasting with wine, and even kissing in front of the Eiffel Tower. I spent the next few days digging through phone records, credit card statements, you name it. I discovered this wasn't a one-time fling. It had been going on for months. The other guy, Matthew, her boss, I'd met him a few times at company events and always felt uneasy around him. Now I knew why. I finally texted Rose with one of the photos and a simple message: "We need to talk." She texted back immediately, panicking and begging me not to do anything rash, claiming she could explain. I didn't respond. Instead, I called her parents and told them everything. They were shocked but supportive. When Rose called, I let it go to voicemail. Her message was full of tearful apologies and excuses, saying Matthew had pressured her and that she still loved me. I wasn't buying it. I consulted a lawyer who told me to document everything and not to leave the house, as it could be seen as abandonment in divorce proceedings. Rose was due back in a few days, and I knew I had to confront her. I arranged for the kids to stay with my parents so we could talk without them around. The day she came back was surreal. She walked in trying to act like everything was normal, but as soon as she saw my face, she knew the jig was up. She broke down, admitting everything between sobs. How it started with innocent flirting and late nights, and how it escalated from there. She claimed she never meant for it to go this far and begged for a chance to work things out. Looking at her, I felt nothing but emptiness. "I want a divorce," I said quietly. She begged me to reconsider, for the kids, for everything we had built together. But my mind was made up. And that's pretty much where we're at. Hey everyone, just wanted to share what's been going on. So Rose was begging for another chance, but I had already made up my mind. I'd spent the whole week thinking it through and realized I could never trust her again. Our life together, everything we built, it was just a big lie. I told her I'd be crashing at my parents for a while and that I'd already talked to a lawyer. We'd sort out the details of the separation and custody through them. She tried to argue, to plead, but I was done listening. I grabbed my packed bag, walked out, and left her sobbing on the couch. The next few weeks at my parents' place were all about figuring out how to rebuild my life. Telling the kids was the hardest part. Rose and I decided to do it together, keeping it simple. Mommy and Daddy won't be living together anymore, but we both still love you very much. Victoria, being older, seemed to understand more. She even asked if it was because Mommy had a boyfriend, which shocked both of us. Apparently, she'd overheard some of our arguments. Travis just cried and asked if it was his fault. It broke my heart to see them hurting like that. Work was another challenge. I had to take some time off to deal with everything. Rose moved out about a month after I confronted her and got an apartment nearby, so the kids could easily go between our places. We set up a temporary custody arrangement. The kids stayed with me during the week and with her on weekends. It wasn't ideal, but it was the best we could do under the circumstances. As for Matthew, he faced his own consequences once the affair came to light. He was forced to resign from the company, and last I heard, he'd moved to another state to start over. Good riddance. Throughout all of this, I've been surprised by the support I've received. My family has been fantastic, helping with the kids and offering emotional support. My friends have stuck around, making sure I'm not sitting at home alone brooding. Even Rose's family has been supportive, much to her dismay. They made it clear they didn't condone what she'd done. It's been 3 months now since that discovery. Divorce proceedings are underway, and we're working out the details of custody and asset division. It's tough, but I'm taking it one day at a time. The kids are trying to process all the changes in their lives. So that's where I am now, a single dad, soon to be divorced. It's not where I thought I'd be at 38, but I'm hopeful for the future. If nothing else, this experience has shown me how strong I can be, and I'm determined to come out of this better and stronger. I'll update if anything significant changes. Thanks for listening to my story. Update 1. It's been about 3 months since my last post and a lot has happened. Thought I'd give you all an update. Rose initially tried to contest the divorce, claiming she'd made a mistake and wanted to work things out. But when she realized I wasn't budging, she changed tactics. Now she's fighting for a larger share of our assets and more custody of the kids. Her main argument is that her affair was a momentary lapse in judgment and shouldn't negate all the years she spent as a devoted wife and mother. She's even tried to paint me as controlling, saying I drove her to the affair by being emotionally distant. It's all bull, of course, but it's still frustrating to deal with. The most contentious issue has been the house. We bought it together early in our marriage and both want to keep it. I argued that since I'm the primary caregiver for the kids, they're with me during the school week, it would be less disruptive for them if I kept the house. Rose countered that she needs the space for when the kids are with her. We're still battling that out. As for custody, we're currently sticking with the temporary arrangement we set up. Kids with me during the week and with Rose on weekends. But Rose is pushing for 50 custody. Her lawyer argues that her work schedule has become more flexible. Convenient timing, right? So she can be more present for the kids. Speaking of work, there's been some drama there too. Remember Matthew, Rose's boss she had the affair with? Well, turns out he didn't just quietly resign and move away like I thought. He's been causing problems. About a month ago, I got a call from Rose, hysterical. Apparently, Matthew had shown up at her new apartment drunk and making a scene, yelling about how she'd ruined his life and how she'd promised to leave me for him. Rose called the cops, and Matthew was arrested for disorderly conduct. The whole incident shook Rose up pretty badly. She called me the next day, apologizing again for everything, admitting that the affair had been a huge mistake. She said Matthew had been pressuring her to leave me for months, and she'd been too weak to stand up to him. Part of me felt a twinge of sympathy for her, but mostly I just felt relieved that I was out of that whole mess. The incident with Matthew did have one positive outcome. Rose finally agreed to a restraining order against him. She'd been reluctant before, not wanting to make waves at work, even though they no longer worked together. But now she realized how unstable he could be. As for the kids, they're doing okay. Not great, but okay. Victoria, our 10-year-old, has been acting out at school. Her grades have slipped and she got into a fight with another kid who made a comment about her mom's boyfriend. Travis, at 8, is still struggling to understand what's happening. He's become very clingy, especially with me. One particularly tough moment came when Travis asked me if Mommy didn't love us anymore, since she chose to be with that other man instead of us. It broke my heart to hear him say that. I did my best to explain that Mommy still loved him very much, that adult relationships are complicated, and that none of this was his fault. I'm not sure how much of it he understood, but I hope it helped a little. There have been some awkward moments too. A few weeks ago, I ran into Rose's sister at the grocery store. She looked uncomfortable and tried to avoid me, but I caught up with her. To my surprise, she apologized for her sister's behavior and told me the whole family was disappointed in Rose. She even hinted that this wasn't the first time Rose had been unfaithful, though she didn't give details. It left me wondering how much I really knew about the woman I'd been married to for 12 years. The divorce should be finalized in a few months, and then I can truly start this new chapter of my life. So that's where things stand now. I'm still taking it one day at a time, focusing on being the best dad I can be and rebuilding my life. I'll update again when the divorce is finalized or if anything major changes. Thanks again for all your support and advice. It's meant more than you know. Update 2. Final update. Hey everyone, it's been almost a year since my initial post and about 6 months since my last update. I figured it was time for a final update to close this chapter of my life. First, the big news. The divorce is finally finalized. After months of negotiations, arguments, and compromises, it's officially over. I'm no longer a married man. It's a strange feeling. The terms of the divorce weren't exactly what I'd hoped for, but I suppose that's the nature of compromise. We ended up selling the house and splitting the proceeds. Neither of us got to keep it, which was tough, but it was the fairest solution. I've bought a smaller house in the same school district so the kids didn't have to change schools, and Rose is renting an apartment nearby. So, for custody, we settled on a 60-40th split. The kids stay with me during the school week and every other weekend, while Rose gets them every other weekend and 2 weeknights for dinner. It's not perfect, but it's working so far. The kids seem to be adjusting, even though there are still some tough days. Speaking of the kids, I decided to get them into therapy, and honestly, it's been a game changer. Victoria's grades have improved, and she's even made some new friends at school. Travis is still a bit clingy sometimes, but he's opening up more in therapy and seems to be getting a better handle on things. They both still have moments of sadness or anger about the divorce, but overall, they're pretty resilient. I'm really proud of how they're handling everything. As for Rose and me, we're cordial. We're not friends, and I doubt we ever will be again, but we're managing to co-parent without too much drama. She's still with Matthew, believe it or not. They kept their relationship on the down low for a while after everything went down at her apartment, and I thought they had broken up, but it looks like she took him back, and he moved back from another state. It stung seeing them together officially, but not as much as I expected. I guess I've really started to move on. There was one incident about a month ago that tested our co-parenting relationship. Rose wanted to introduce the kids to Matthew as her boyfriend. I was totally against it, thinking it was too soon and would just confuse the kids. We argued about it for days, eventually taking it to our lawyers and a mediator. In the end, we agreed to consult with the kids' therapist, who advised waiting a bit longer. Rose wasn't happy, but she agreed to hold off. On my end, life has been kind of interesting. I've been focusing on self-improvement, lost about 20 pounds, started reading more, and even took a cooking class. It's been nice to rediscover who I am outside of my marriage. And yeah, I've started dating again. Nothing too serious yet, but I've been on a few dates. It's been awkward and nerve-wracking, but also kind of exciting. There's this one woman, Erica, who I've been seeing for about a month. She's also divorced with a kid, so she really gets what I'm going through. We're taking things slow, but it's nice to have someone to talk to who understands. The first time I introduced Erica to the kids was, let's just say, an experience. We planned a casual meetup at a local park, just a quick hello while the kids played. Victoria was polite but distant, and Travis had a full-on meltdown. He cried and screamed that he wanted his mom and hated me for trying to replace her. It was heartbreaking. Erica was super understanding, but I felt terrible. We've had a few more meetups since then, and they've gone better, but it's still a work in progress. There have been some tough moments, of course. The first holidays post-divorce were rough. Splitting up the traditions, deciding who gets the kids when. It was all painfully new. Thanksgiving was particularly hard. It was the first major holiday I spent without the kids, as they were with Rose. I ended up going to my parents' house, but it felt pretty empty without Victoria and Travis there. Christmas was better, though. We managed to work out a schedule where the kids spent Christmas Eve with Rose and Christmas Day with me. Seeing their faces light up as they opened presents on Christmas morning reminded me why I'm fighting so hard to give them a stable, happy life, even if it looks different from what we had before. Looking back on this whole experience, I can see how much I've grown. A year ago, I was a broken man, betrayed and lost. Now I feel stronger and more confident. Don't get me wrong, I still have moments of doubt, but they're less frequent and less intense. So I guess this is where my story ends, or rather where a new chapter begins. Thank you all for your support, your advice, and your kind words throughout this journey. It's meant more than you could know. Here's to new beginnings and second chances. Wish me luck.